Just have to clear the air real quick here. So we had a fire first 30 minutes, but we had a major malfunction. The captain was drinking on the job.
God dang it.
And he didn't record that first 30 minutes. So we're back and we're starting over and we're going to get back into it. So first off, I just want to say that this is the last week out.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Anthony
That's
and
me.
David and Chudsy with a special guest named Paulie. This podcast is brought to you by Sissy Art. I said all this stuff before, but I'm going to say it again. Sissy Art's art is artistic, and it is absolutely unique and special, and it's really cool. She just did a flash sale on her Instagram at Sissy Art. She just a bunch of just like, because the person that does the art for Sissy Art, Tara Galore, who's on the podcast last week, is one of the most creative people I've ever met. And she's got all these.
These bitches are so upset.
That's her right there. And she just. Dude, she just starts drawing. She puts these things on paper that just look so cool and they're unique. And you just look at it and you're like, I want that. So if you're interested in any of her art, follow her, please, at Sissy Art. That's at SISSYART, at Sissy Art. Meow, 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 meow. That lo-fi banger was provided by Devin J. Hancock. Follow him at Devin J. Hancock. If you guys got anything going on, if you got something you need advice for, like, just DM us, man. Let us know. Slide up in our DMs and ask us for some help and for advice. I don't know if we can help you, but we can definitely give you some advice. You can email us at thelastweekout@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at lastweekout. You can go to our YouTube page in the bio of our Instagram. Check that out. Subscribe. Listen to some of the other episodes. Leave comments. Hit the like button. We're working on, hopefully in the next couple episodes, we're going to be on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. We're going to be on all the different platforms, and we're just going to be out there trying to get this message of hope and inspiration and motivation out there. So, like I said, we're here with Paulie.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here for another 30 minutes. And as I was saying, like I said in the original 30 minutes, Paul, I know Paul even better now because of that 30 minutes that I did before. But as I was saying before, man, Paul's just one of those guys when you look at him and you're like, he is just so well put together. And I'm not even kidding. 97% of his body is completely tan. He looks like a gold brick.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane. 24 carats over there, big guy.
Bling.
Wow.
So I'm passed over here to the Olive Garden breadstick, Mr. Anthony Tatum, next to us.
That's me. So like Chad said, we had recorded 30 minutes and got to know Paul really well. And what we come to find out is that our mics weren't feeding properly. But we believe in divine intervention here because we're optimists. So we took a break. We had a long talk with Paul, but I think it'd be best to kind of recap everything we talked about before because we were heading in such a positive direction with Paul. And so I'm going to kind of lead it, and then Paul, you just kind of jump in and fill in the blanks as I go across. So you grew up out here in Mesa. Correct. And you were brought up in a family that was, is there an Orthodox LDS, or is it just everyone that's in LDS practices this way that you were raised?
Pretty much everyone practices that way.
Yeah. So
what's with the polygamous set?
That's a set. Well, I mean, Mormonism, back when polygamy was legal, practiced polygamy.
Yeah.
Because like they had been persecuted, a lot of Mormons were killed for their religion or whatever, and so they believed it. Once it became illegal, then the church stopped practicing it, and then there was like a sect that broke off.
Like that show Big Love.
I've
never seen
You've never seen Big Love?
I don't watch TV, so
Still avowed.
just never watch TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just
Me and my
I mean,
wife.
I can't say never, but I every once in a while. But
Yeah.
I don't like know any shows.
Are you watching Game of Thrones?
That is the one show I will watch.
Who's gonna die tonight?
A lot of people.
Who is Arya gonna die?
No.
Definitely not. No, she's
She's a
She's
survivor.
a survivor. She's a trooper, dude.
No, nobody's gonna die because they
No
they
one.
left you waiting, and they're gonna play this next episode, and they're gonna talk about a story on the other side of the world
it better
the
not.
entire
I was
time.
wanting a fight last week, so there better be a fight this week.
There must be blood.
Yes, there must be a war this
Yeah,
week.
Cersei's killing Arya tonight. I'm calling it. Long shot. Cersei
That is a
stabs
long
Arya.
shot.
And she
Do you
is going
know-
to adopt the dragon.
They are so far away. There's no way they could possibly. The logistics of possibly traveling from King's Landing to the north is not going to happen in one day, Anthony.
I'm sorry. But let me apologize to viewers that don't watch Game of Thrones. We fell into a hole there. I apologize. So back to being Mormon.
Back to being
you grew up Mormon.
Correct.
And Paul has a sordid past as far as started smoking weed when you were 13, but prior to that, you were a young criminal.
I was a young criminal. I was, yeah, that's about it. I
Yeah,
was
that's a good way to sum it up.
I was a troublemaker.
Yeah.
I was drawn to causing problems.
Yeah, stealing.
Stealing, smoking paper. We'd roll up paper and smoke it.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, just paper?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
well,
I've done
there's
that too.
yeah, because there was like no one in my neighborhood smoked cigarettes, so we would, thought we were cool. We'd roll up paper. I got arrested also before I was, out of grade school for like we made napalm, and we would burn that
Styrofoam,
and gasoline.
That's
Yeah,
it.
That's it.
Were you guys successful?
Oh, very successful.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got arrested for it. So
Holy
we'd just go down to
mackerel.
the park. There's a park at the end of the street that everyone partied at the end of my street.
Party Park.
Yep.
Everyone had one.
Yeah, and we would just light napalm all over the park.
And so Paul shared with us that he was actually incarcerated a few times as a juvenile.
Yeah.
And then he didn't want to share with how long because I believe he's going to rope that into his two truths and a lie later.
Correct.
We do that much later. Don't sweat that right now.
I'm not worried about it anymore.
And Paul shared with us that at a young age, 13, starts smoking weed, does really terribly in school, decides not to go, and you start picking up harder drugs. Meth.
Meth, acid, coke. What do you got? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Back then, heroin wasn't the epidemic that it is today. I was the party kid, so everyone knew, like, if you wanted to get fucked up,
Paul's your guy.
come hang out with me. And I never saw heroin.
Never saw it.
Never even saw it. And I hung out with people, like I met someone in juvenile prison that was like, mom was in the, Hell's Angels, and they had pounds and pounds of meth, and never saw heroin.
Wow, man. What a trip. What a different world we're living in right now. Now it's fentanyl and opiates and everything.
Right.
Anywhere you go. And so you continue down this path of using drugs, drinking. How old were you when you kind of got this? And I know Paul today as a really positive human being and working, in a program of recovery and helping people. When did that ideology kind of shift? Like, when did the necessity to sobriety kind of happen for you?
When I got released from the Texas Department of Corrections in 2010.
What were you doing in Texas?
That just sounds rough.
Yeah, it's not a fun place.
Texas
You
Department.
got arrested by
Ooh.
Chuck Norris.
Yeah, no, I ended up in tech. Like I had mentioned before, my 20s is pretty much a blur.
Uh-huh.
My parents came to me about 21, 22. I was strung out on heroin and crack, and they're like, we want to pay for you to go to this fancy rehab, the nicest rehab they could find, $50,000 cash, whatever, on Newport Beach, California.
Yeah.
And I said, why would I want to go there? I don't want to get sober.
I'd go there tomorrow.
Right. Me too. A nice break from life.
Sounds
Real
great.
quick. You know what I mean? But I never heard the word sober in my life till I came into a program of recovery. So it wasn't like, oh, I don't want to get sober. I was like, why would I want to do that? And then they're like, well, you should probably move. And so I started moving all over the U.S. trying to change my life. And I ended up
Around
in Texas.
21?
Around 21. And then at 29 years old, I had ended up in Texas from some dude I met in rehab, went and lived there with him, was selling heroin, got arrested.
Yeah.
And went to prison, got out. That was the first time in my life that I was like, okay, I got to change.
Yeah, this isn't working.
Right. Drugs are not working out for me anymore,
And I think it would be important to kind of share is like you at 18 had put the LDS church behind you. You were done. And Paul explained.
At 13.
13, you were
But
done.
it was part of my probation stipulations that my parents made sure was part of that I went to church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those parents were working the courts. They're like, and he has to clean our backyard.
Yeah, no.
Twice a week.
They loved the courts. I mean, my mom and dad were like best friends with my probation officers and judges and all that. And they're, they were everything trying to get me to change my life. And
Right.
they were the problem, really.
And so you land in a. That's why I'm where I'm at.
They would have just left me alone. We wouldn't have had any
right,
issues.
Right.
Let
No,
me shoot meth in the attic. Right?
yeah, exactly. I believe that. Like if my PO would leave me alone, my parents would leave me alone, my girlfriend would leave me alone.
Everything would be good.
Yeah, I'd go to school.
You'd probably be a doctor. And so at 29 years old, you're out of incarceration, and you're just like, I'm gonna change it.
I moved back here, and in incarceration when I was in prison in Texas, I like got baptized again to a different religion, Christian. I don't even know what religion it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been baptized in like every religion you could get baptized in, trying to like change, but whatever. That was the first time that I wasn't telling my mom or my dad or my PO or my girlfriend or whoever that I was like gonna change. It was like I was telling myself, and I got out and I got high that day.
Holy shit! Some
Out-
powerlessness.
Out the gate at 8 and in the spoon by noon.
Yeah, literally. Like I mean, you get released with some money. I bought alcohol and I had my parents send me some money for a bus pass back to Arizona.
Yeah.
And I was buying pills and weed at the Greyhound bus stop, getting loaded the whole way here.
What a good place to be, dude. The Greyhound bus stop. I mean, you can find whatever you want there.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, definitely, you can find whatever you want in every state if you're really looking.
And then what? You get out here.
I came out here and I was just gonna smoke weed. None of my friends would let me smoke weed. They're like, you can't do that, and I started smoking weed. And next thing you know, I was strung out on heroin again.
That's that scary.
I will never
line.
get you your first hard drug. I'll get you your first hard dick.
That was our guest Danielle. I love that line. It's like I wanted to smoke weed. Man, me too. I think for most of us, we look back on anybody who abused substances to kind of any
Extreme.
level of extreme. And when you say extreme, it's like no, really extreme. This isn't like silly shit. This is crazy madness. And we look at it and smoking weed would be great. I mean, I smell weed now and I'm like, man, that stuff smells amazing. And they've got like dabs and what is it, crumble and
Wax.
shatter.
You can get
Oh,
soda.
Now they got shatter.
Vape pens,
gummy
like,
bears with too much weed in
right,
it.
caramel, whatever you want.
Yeah, me and my wife always say that we got sober too early because it's looking like it's way more acceptable. And so for me, I whenever I talk to people who don't really understand the extent of my sickness to or of my proclivity to using, I tell them man, I would love to use weed, but it's just for me, it's kind of like why even entertain it? Why even think about it? It's too scary. It could lead to what it used to be. And even if there's a 0.001% chance, I'm careful though about energy drinks. I'm careful. There was like that stuff, Viva Zen. I don't know if our listeners know any of that. This was like a gas station drink that they were like, yeah, it mellows you out if you drink this. I was like, fuck no, I'm not going to do that.
That neuro sleep shit.
Yeah,
I tried just smoking weed.
Yeah.
And it definitely led me back.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell us about your recovery a little bit. Tell us about that.
Okay.
So you got into recovery and then you started smoking weed again.
So I ended up at the Salvation Army in 2010.
Oh, for our listeners who don't know the Salvation Army, the Salvation Army is nowhere that you want to be.
It's the low of the low of the low.
Yeah, you can get in there. You just show up and they let you in, but they put you to work, right?
Yes. You work 8-9 hours a day. They give you clothes. They give you everything you need. You have to tuck in your shirt. You can't use swear language. You have to be cleanly shaven. You have to do all kinds of stuff. Go to all these groups. Go to meetings every day.
Church.
Yes, church twice a week.
Was that weird growing up in LDS? And then, well, you were saying you were baptized, so you were kind of.
Oh, I was full on in it. I thought, it was early recovery, so whatever.
Whatever you give me.
Whatever. Just like if this is what you're going to tell me is going to keep me off drugs and alcohol, then cool, I'll do it.
You're willing.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, you come out of there.
I get kicked out of there after 3 months.
For what?
It was, they call it pilfering. I had a pilfering ring going on. I was stealing stuff and selling it. And
Pilfering?
yeah, that's what they call it. It's stealing.
You pilfering pilfster.
Now, yeah, I mean, if you think that the behaviors and the ideas and the way you live your life are going to change just because you decide to quit using drugs and alcohol, that's a rude awakening.
Yeah.
You have to make an effort at doing those things. You know what I mean? And I did not understand that. I thought, just take the drugs and alcohol out of my life and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was still living the same behaviors.
Right.
And I got kicked out after 3 months.
Did that spin you right back into using?
No, I actually was blessed that I had gotten a sponsor at the time.
Okay.
And that was the only phone number I had to call.
And this is a guy that's in recovery also.
Correct.
Kind of a mentor.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know what a sponsor is.
Yeah.
In the 12 steps of recovery, a sponsor is a person that you call that kind of walks you through anything that's recovery related, essentially.
Right.
Right. And so you called him.
I called him, and he's like, okay, since you got kicked out of a rehab, I need you to commit to a year at a sober living house.
Yeah.
So that's a house that you live in that you get UA'd at. You have to work. You have to go to meetings.
Still
and you have to be
accountable,
sober.
supervision.
Yeah.
All those.
Curfews, all that stuff. House manager telling you how to live your life.
When you put a beautiful life together after that?
Yeah, no, I put a life that I never thought was possible to live.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it wasn't easy early on. I didn't have hadn't worked in years and years and years.
What did you do for work?
I did day labor at the beginning.
Yeah, like what?
Oh, I did the Barrett Jackson car show one day. I would get up at like 4 a.m, go to sit at the day labor shop place right by the house, and then I'd work for just doing whatever work they'd give me. Electrical work, grunt work at construction sites, whatever it is. And then for 8 to 9 hours a day, and then I'd get paid $50. Come home, shower.
Get paid $50?
$50.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a rough time.
Were you happy?
No.
No. Thank you for your honesty, sir.
No, I was miserable, but I'm glad for that misery because it kept me going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't miserable enough to where how miserable I was getting high, but it wasn't fun. I mean, there was, some of the closest relationships I have today in my life are with people in that sober living house,
Yep.
And so those were, I'd laugh, we'd go hang out and do stuff and go to, meetings and do stuff with those guys and building those kinds of relationships, but like working for $50 a day, getting up super early, working all day, going home, showering, going to a meeting, eating ramen, cans of beans that you got out the food pantry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up
Hand-me-downs.
skateboarding, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? When I got out of jail,
Me
my
too.
brother gave me clothes, and it was Wrangler boots and Wrangler pants and like flannel shirts, which is nothing wrong with that, but I was a skateboarder. That's like the opposite of what I wore. You know what I mean? But it was the only clothes I had. It was
Yep.
the only clothes my brother.
That used to be a punishment for me in middle school, where I wore the same kind of stuff, like big oversized band shirts and Jinko jeans and
Jinko
stuff.
jeans, I was just
and
gonna say that.
and so to punish me when I wasn't getting good grades, my parents made me wear Tommy Hilfigers and tuck in my shirt and dress shoes. It's like, damn, I wish I had that stuff now. I would be so sick.
Yeah.
Right,
Dave is
right.
like a Tommy Bahama model now. He's got all the most comfy floral shirts.
Right.
So you get out. What year is this that we're talking about right now?
2010.
2010. So
Yeah.
9 years ago.
Yep.
Put a beautiful life together. You struggle through a couple years later into your
I struggled
recovery?
through, and then about a year later, I got my own apartment, and I got a job at a dry cleaners. I had some experience working at a dry cleaners when I was like 19, 20.
I met you while you worked at that dry cleaner, actually.
Yeah, I worked at that dry cleaners for 9 years.
Wow, that's a good
I
run.
built I started as working on the line all the way up to running the business for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's not what you're doing now, though.
No, I just got a new job the last 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you were telling us a little bit about it. So you dabble with weed. When does that happen?
So about 5 years sober, one of my friends that I met in the sober living house, he he couldn't stay sober, so he was in and out. And like you were talking about your buddy that, would help you out when you're out. He would, hit me up when he was out, and I'd help him out. But he was just the closest person I've ever been with in my life. But at about 2 weeks before I was 5 years sober, I found him dead in our house of a heroin overdose.
Well, we actually talked about him on the podcast last week. No, 2 weeks ago.
He was close friends with Danielle.
Yeah, close friends with Danielle.
As well.
Okay.
Which I am too.
So that hardship, did that send you sort of into a depression that led to it, or right into weed?
No, that'll change your life for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doing CPR on a dead body of your closest friend.
Closest friend, yeah.
You know what
kidding.
I mean? And it didn't, like, I stayed sober for a year after that, but it just kind of, I slowly over the next year stopped doing so much. And after 2 months, I met this girl that, that she grew up with him. Their families were really close. Yeah. And I over the next year, I just, like, I don't need to go to a meeting every day. I don't need to sponsor 8 guys. I don't need to, do 2 H&Is a week. I don't need to do, slowly. It wasn't
cut out the responsibilities.
Yes, slowly, very slowly over the next year. I don't need to be on the committees. I don't need all these things that I did for years and years and years. Yeah. Just slowly stopped doing it. To eventually it was like I'm just on a board of a of a World Service thing. And I go to that meeting once
Low maintenance recovery.
No recovery.
No recovery at all.
No recovery. Didn't really deal with that. Was too concerned about everyone else, making sure everyone else was okay, making sure everyone else was, honestly, I can look back right now, and it was like there was the pride and ego had gotten back. Like, someone with 5 years shouldn't be, there was the belief, which was a lie in my head, is like someone with that many years shouldn't be suffering, the way I was suffering. Yeah.
And you
so I just wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't tell people.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was ashamed that, like, hey, which is it's false, right? It doesn't matter how much time you have. I just didn't believe that someone with that amount of time sober should be suffering like that.
Yeah, that is actually, you'd say, in the recovery community, for anyone who's not involved and maybe just involved in anything that they're involved in, it's like once you start to put together some time sober, sometimes people look at that as a milestone. And normally with time sober comes, good coping mechanisms, good supports, good all these things, because without them, we probably wouldn't have got here.
So, real quick though, I have a bittersweet memory of something happened where it was at David's funeral, and Paul gets up to speak, and he's been in the program for so long, going to meetings for so long, that he introduces himself. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm an addict.
Did everyone did like half the crowd? Hi,
half the crowd
Paul.
laughed, and half the crowd was very confused.
They're like, "Oh no, another one." Yeah. So and like I was saying, I could relate with meeting and hearing. We get this time where we've had this time sober, and we kind of falsely associate it with some sort of ego or some sort of accomplishment, like a graduation or a merit, and we dissipate on all of the things that we were doing that got us to that point, and then the misery comes in, and then intrinsically it's like shame, and it's sometimes people are cognizant of it or aware. Yeah. Sometimes we're not, about like how to even talk about.
I can look back at it now and see it, but I thought it was okay. Yeah. I'd met someone that I had fallen in love with, and it was like that became like the good feeling. Mm-hmm. That person helped me to feel good and helped me, and so it masked it very well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it's a powerful thing to look back on maybe a miserable time of our lives and to be able to say, like, in hindsight, I can spot it. But then, the awareness just wasn't there. And we've talked about that on this podcast before, is how grateful we can get for the awareness, because it comes and you're just like, fuck, like I have so much to fix. And I've been making this mistake for so long. How did I get here? But without that awareness, you just continue on. Right. And so for you, did the awareness come and then the weed, or was it just like, boom?
No, it was one point I was about to get married, and I'd just gotten engaged, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to close this chapter of my life.
The sobriety chapter.
Sobriety, David dying, all that. Like I
life.
wasn't going to meetings really anymore. I wasn't really active in a program of recovery. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to close this chapter of my life. I'm going to get married, start having kids. You know, I'm going to start a new chapter. And that's what it was. And then after that, then it was like, well, you can get a medical card now in Arizona. It's legal. You can, I mean, anyone can get a medical card. And I was
True.
like, I'll get a medical card and I'll just, I'll start smoking weed. And I told my fiance that, and she's like, cool. She had a medical card.
And just right back in?
Right back in, started smoking weed.
Well, where were you guys at in planning the wedding? I planned a wedding. That's not fun.
We had just gotten engaged. So it was the beginning.
Oh, the
it was
very beginning.
It was 2 months after.
Had you booked a place yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I had just this was like November, and I had asked her to marry me in October.
Okay.
October 1st it was.
And so you're smoking weed, and then boom. How bad did it get bad quick?
No, not at all. Well, okay, so there's a little story I like to always tell is that, so my girl smoked weed, and she would get like a cartridge, a vape cartridge, and hit it at night, and have it for a couple days, and then so I started smoking weed, and like a month into smoking weed, she came over one day, and I had like these 2 shoe boxes full of just like different kinds of weeds. You know what I mean? Like in glass jars, just like 50 something different kinds of strands. I got sober and there wasn't dabs. I had a dab rig. I had like all these vape pens, you know what I mean? And she's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just smoking weed. And she's like, what's wrong with you?
This is
and I was
excessive.
like, right. And I was like, babe, I'm just smoking weed. You know what I mean? She gets a pen and makes it last for 3 weeks.
Yeah, a couple
These
of hits.
bitches are so upset.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she's like, you need to go back to, a program of recovery. And I was like, what are you what's wrong? And she's like, there's something wrong with you. Like, why do you have all this?
Right.
Just passionate.
You know what I mean? Right, exactly.
I'm a connoisseur.
I was like, dude, babe, there's all these good strands. I wanted her to try them.
This one's for sleep. This one's for the morning gym.
All different kinds. I grew weed when I was younger, so it was like, oh, these are all these strands that I know about that I want. I would go over all the dispensaries and get whatever.
That's so funny, a normal person's perspective on somebody that suffers from addiction.
Right.
Like, this is not okay.
Right. This is not normal. I was like, I'm just smoking weed. No, but I smoked weed for like 8 or 9 months and didn't really. I did some acid and ketamine and ecstasy and mushrooms and all that. When I went to EDC, which is the Electric Daisy
Crack,
Carnival.
heroin.
No, I hadn't done that yet, but I went to Electric Daisy Carnival for my bachelor party and did all those things.
Okay, so the wedding is getting planned.
We're planning the wedding. I'm smoking weed with her all the time.
Right.
And the wedding's getting planned. Everything's fine. Everything's cool. We plan the wedding. We find the venue. We've got all that.
Are you hiding stuff? So you're showing her like 4 or 5 strands, but really you got 20 hidden
No,
away?
she knew she knew everything.
Okay.
I mean, because then I started taking Xanax at night to go to sleep because the head got really loud. She knew about all that.
Yeah.
She knew about everything until I eventually got on heroin.
How'd that happen?
So I went to Mexico with a bunch of friends, and my other close buddy that just moved back to Atlanta, talking about Atlanta, he was from Atlanta, came out here to straighten out his life. So we went to Mexico. He's never been to Mexico. He's like, dude, can you really get whatever you want in Mexico? I'm like, bro, it's Mexico. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
Right. And I went and I went down there to buy a bunch of bars. And so we went to the pharmacy, and I got my Xanax bars, and he's like, let's get some pills, and I'm like, no. And he's like, just for the weekend. So we get some Vicodin or whatever. And then on Sunday morning when we're leaving, he's like, let's go by the pharmacy again. And I was going to go get some more Xanax for someone else. And I was like, all right, cool. And I'm like, but don't be fucked up when we cross the border because I got like 300 bars on me. You know what I mean? And he's like, all right, cool. He's like, I got a hangover. Let me get a bar so I can feel better. And I was like, whatever. So I give him that. And we get to the pharmacy, and he like talks the guys into getting those dirty 30s, the perk 30s.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, so whatever. So he's like, let me make sure they're real. So he snorts one off the counter,
Of the pharmacy
of
in
the
Mexico?
pharmacy in Mexico, right? Crushes
What
it up.
is happening?
Snorts the line off the counter in Mexico. And I'm like, bro, I told you not to be fucked up when we cross the border.
I'm gonna be good.
Right.
I'm
He's
gonna
like,
be
it's
good.
cool, dude. It's cool, dude.
Chill out.
So we get in the car and we're driving. And I'm like, dude, he's like the DJ because I'm driving. I'm like, bro, what are we listening to? And I hit him. He's blue. Overdosed.
What?
Blue, dude. And I'm like in Rocky Point, Mexico, like, oh my God, I'm going to push this dude out of my car.
Yeah, you have to.
Like, what? How do I
Just let him
explain a
go.
dog?
Just let him
How do I
free.
explain a dead body in my car in Mexico? You know what I mean? You can't even explain going 2 miles over the speeding limit without getting a fine.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. I get into a gas station. I just jump out of my car and start screaming. Some lady gets in my car and drives us to a
And you're
clinic.
already traumatized.
Yeah,
You already have.
I'd already
this
seen
issue.
my other best friend die, you know.
Wow.
And so then, like when we're like taking him into this clinic, I go through his pocket and find all those other pills, and I walk down the street to throw them out, and I like go to throw them, and my hand goes into my pocket. It doesn't throw the pills.
The old pigaroo.
I literally walked down the street to throw them out, and I couldn't. I've never been able to throw away drugs in my life. It's just not in me. And so I took those back and started doing those. And
So you got back across the border,
and
your friend lived.
my friend lived. He got shot up with Narcan. He got brought back. He was good.
Oh man, thank God for Narcan.
Right. And then, you know, I snuck him back. He's like, what happened to those pills? I was like, I threw those things out, man. They killed you, dude. You know what I mean? And started doing them, got sick off those. Next thing you know, I'm looking for heroin.
So the
Boom.
wedding.
That was like a month and a half before my wedding.
Okay.
So I do dope for like 2 weeks. I told this dude I confided in that I was, you know, because no one knew. No one knew. I was like, dude, I could not even look anyone in the eye. I was like, how am I back here? How am I back on heroin again? Not only that, I'm about to get married in a month and a half.
Yeah.
And so I told this dude, you know, that was close friends with my buddy that died, and he flipped out and called someone. The one person he called was this guy that owns a rehab in Kansas City that used to live here, was close friends with my buddy's dad that died, who's close friends with my fiance's family. And so everyone knew that I was getting high.
Just opened it.
Right, boom, just open the can of worms. So then Labor Day weekend, they all go to see their grandma in Michigan, and I detox myself, and I come home. I'd been off heroin for 5 days, you know, come home on Tuesday to an intervention. And they're like, if you want to see Christina, was her name, if you want to see Christina again,
Your fiance.
yes, you have to go to detox right now. And I'm like, well, I'm detoxed. They're like, it doesn't matter. And so then I left, and that night they canceled the wedding.
Wow, man.
Yeah, her parents canceled the wedding.
Oh my God, it's been a common thing that we've talked about with Human Connection on this podcast is transparency, and there's a serious lack of it in that story you just told us, and it blows my mind that like when we hold that stuff in, when we don't speak about it, when we don't talk about it, when we're not transparent, you can end up like Paul.
Right.
Yeah, in Mexico, fake throwing Xanax while your dead friend's in the car and
Right.
across the border. Well, that's powerful, man.
Yeah.
And so, but regardless of the fact that you had been detoxed, now you are doing well.
Right.
All
No,
signs
so
show.
my buddy that owns the rehab in Kansas City, he was the one guy. So it was like my brother, my brother-in-law, her brother, and then him. That was going to be my groomsmen in my wedding.
Yeah,
So he's like, I got you a ticket. You're coming out here on Wednesday.
nice.
So he just threw me out to Kansas City. He's like, well, there's no end date. You're here. You're scholarshiped in here. We'll let you know when you're good. So I went out there and I dug. You know what I mean? I cried a lot. I didn't talk to her for 90 days. She wouldn't talk to me.
How's that relationship now?
We're not talking as we speak.
Yeah.
You know, I eventually had to walk away.
I would assume. I mean, that's just, even if that relationship was deep and meaningful, I mean, it's crazy what some situations like what you're talking about can do. I mean, you can look back and be like, that might have worked out, but I really, really fucking shit the bed on that one. And some stuff is, it's not that it's unforgivable, but it's not like we can pretend like it didn't happen.
Right.
And that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, man. All right. So then today you are a sober, happy individual.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. No, I'm sober. You know, I can remember sitting in the rehab. Sorry, I'm going to cry. if anyone knows me, they know I cry a lot. So I remember sitting in the rehab, and I knew, like, working a program of recovery works. Like, the first time you come in, everything you've tried didn't work. So you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. This, you know what I mean? Whatever, I'll do it. But after having 6 years of sobriety and working the program, and my life drastically changing, where my relationships with my family are great, my relationships in the community, every aspect of my life is wonderful, right?
Right.
I know that program of recovery works. So I'm like, okay, I just got to get back into it. You know what I mean? And I sat in the rehab, and I was like, okay, I just got to do it. I got a sponsor that we talked about. I got a sponsor, started working steps, started doing that, started reading. I just read. People watch TV in rehab. I just read literature, and I prayed, and I did all these things. And I was like, I know my life will get good again.
Yeah.
And like, a month and a half ago, I was at work, and I was like, I started crying, and I was like, I'm there. Right, I'm where I wanted to be a year and a half ago in rehab, when I knew I was like, I feel happy again in life. I love my life. I feel connected to the program. I feel connected to God. All those things, like, I'm there again.
That is,
you know what I mean?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So anybody listening, struggling, thinking, like, if you could take everything that you were talking about going through with, being in recovery, not reaching out, the people passing away, all of that, synthesize that down to sort of what you think anyone who's listening might hear that you could kind of expedite or save them from whatever it was you went through. So is it like reach out? Would that be your biggest piece of advice when you're feeling that way, or what would it be?
I think it's more with like what Chad was talking about, being transparent, right? Like, today I don't have any secrets. Today I don't, you know what I mean? I don't. Everyone knows what's going on. I'm transparent in my life. If I'm upset, if I'm not, honestly, have somebody, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a best friend, whether it's someone in your life that you can be completely accountable and know. Because that's what happened, is that I started to do behaviors that I probably shouldn't have done, and I wasn't, and I had a sponsor that was a great sponsor. Don't get me wrong, but I was afraid to tell him what was going on in my life because I didn't want to be judged. You know what I mean? I had 5 years of sobriety, and I didn't want him to, you know what I mean? I couldn't be transparent. With him.
Okay.
And it had anything to do with him. It was me. You know what I mean? Find that connection with somebody. Like today, my sponsor is the sponsor I had for, the first 4 years of sobriety last time.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, he moved to San Diego, and is the only reason I found a different sponsor, and he recently moved back. And so he's my sponsor again. And that dude knows everything that's ever going on in my life.
Stay present.
Yeah, ever, always. I
so
can
beautiful.
tell him that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't judge me. And I don't like. I know that he won't judge me. He'll just give me the right direction.
Great.
Yeah,
I think we should take a quick break. I know that. So what happened? Like Chad and all of us have said, we ran 30 minutes. We came back, found out that we weren't recording properly. Let's take a quick little break right now, and we'll come right back to you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be right back.
Sissy Art made it.
I got Sissy Art. I'm a motherfucking wall. I ain't got no other paintings cause a sissy gang, y'all.
And we back again. Took a little break, like we always do. Talked about some things. Laughed.
Smoke break.
Little smoke break, little vape break. When we left off, Paul was telling us how much of a dirtbag he's been most of his life. And now he's going to tell us how he's not a dirtbag anymore.
No, he was telling us about you went through some hardship and then now you're sober. And that was actually really beautiful about kind of coming back. And thank you for sharing that with us. And on our initial break, we had a kind of heavy conversation. We're putting Paul on the fucking spot here. And he told us to, pull no punches. So, Paul, we were talking about relationships. You were talking about how you were due to get married. And then we started talking about, and this is on our initial break. So this is about an hour ago that we had this conversation with Paul, where he is currently in a relationship that's a little bit different than the relationship that you were in before. And so we kind of wanted to talk with you about that. Maybe you take the lead and I'll kind of jump in and ask you some questions.
Sure.
Before we get started, no, never mind.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, Chad.
Okay, so I don't want to be the one to blow it. So I had heard something through the grapevine, and Paul had asked us. He had said that he'd been in a relationship since December, so we took a break. And being the manipulative person that I am by nature, I don't try to be, but I had asked Paul. I said, Paul, who are you in a relationship with? And what was your answer?
I was like, I don't even remember. I said, oh, you won't know the person. They're not in the program. And then it's kind of, it's not a well-known fact, and then I was like, you know what? I'm in a relationship with another guy.
Right, and we're all, what?
Right. Well, no,
Acted like we had no idea.
Yeah, David was in the bathroom, and then he came out, and he's like, so wait, is the rumor true?
Yeah, David came right out with it. No, David had asked, I don't know if he asked me and Chad at the same time, but last week when we knew that you were coming on, he was like, hey, you heard that Paul's in a relationship with a guy? Or I don't know if that's the question you asked, is, had you heard that Paul came out? And I was like, no, I haven't heard that at all. And so I had no intention on kind of bringing that up or making that a point of discussion, because it may not be. But on our break, when it kind of came up and we were talking about it, it seems like a really powerful discussion because of your basically figuring this out and figuring out how you're feeling about it, and sort of, you've never been in a relationship with a guy before?
No, I had the idea of like I wanted to grow, have a family, get married, and have kids, and all that whole idea. And so that's what I thought I wanted. That's what I wanted to do with my life. And when that kind of crumbled, when that dream when I destroyed that dream as well, I guess you can say, something I didn't bring up was, as a young kid, I was molested, for a lot of years, and by a guy, and so I'd always questioned my sexuality growing up. Definitely did stuff in my active addiction, that would be considered gay, I guess, or homophobic. What do you?
Right.
I don't even know.
You say it make you question maybe your sexuality?
Yeah, definitely. No, questioned it all my life. And, I can remember I was like 26 years old living in Chicago, and my dad, I crashed 3 company vehicles of his that month. And he's just like, what is wrong with you, Paul? Why can you not stop? And I thought it was because, I was gay. And so I told my parents then, I'm like, I think I'm gay. You know what I mean? And then,
Wow, so this has been a discussion that you had with your parents previously?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I've always been really super close with my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's like, he's known everything about me. You know what I mean? Something else, so from the age of 13 to 16, my mom had multiple personality disorder,
Mm-hmm.
and she hated one of the personalities, legitimately multiple personality disorder, different names, talk different ages, all of them, and one of them hated men, especially me and my dad. And that was another reason as to why I was such a troubled youth. I didn't want to be home because my mom hated me, I thought.
Yeah, well, randomly.
So I've been molested, figured out, once I realized what was going on, I was like, I don't want this happening. I got really angry, and then that whole thing started with my mom, and so it was just I need to get out of this place.
Yeah, drugs and alcohol helped for a while.
And running away from home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My mom always says that by the age of 14, I was out of the house.
You're gone.
Gone.
Yeah,
either
hard
in
to do.
juvenile, either in prison, either in, rehab or on the run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you are kind of figuring this whole relationship thing out. And I think for me, look at, for me, I know that I'm not a bigot in these areas at all. When I hear about it, I'm just like, well, we've heard a lot, and that's really interesting to me because you've dated a bunch of girls. And so in those relationships, looking back, do you feel like there was a level of dishonesty, or you were really attracted to them and loved those women?
Most of the women that I've dated know that I've fooled around with guys, or that I always question my sexuality. Right. I'm pretty transparent, except for when it comes to drugs and alcohol.
That's it.
Yeah.
Keep that thing locked in.
Well, because then people don't, they always are like, well, what's wrong with, you know what I mean? But yeah, most of them have known, most of my friends known. I'd never dated a guy, and then, when I tried to make it work with the girl that I was going to marry, and then dated a couple of girls since I've been back
Yeah.
sober again, and just wasn't working out.
How long have you guys been dating?
Who?
You and the guy you're with
since
right now?
December.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I started like I was on the good old, what are they called, dating apps, you know what I mean? And one day my close friend that moved to Atlanta that overdosed, he's like, dude, why don't you just change the preferences to male and females? And I was like, all right, might as well try it.
Yeah.
Met someone, and escalated from there.
What-
I honestly I thought I would like freak out and wouldn't be okay with it, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's the main difference? For humor's sake, for me, the main difference between dating a guy and a girl, like in the house, I mean, is it like a more open relationship for you?
Yeah, no, yeah, no. It's with a girl, I'll be honest with you. The one thing I noticed, like right away with a girl, like she won't like fart in front of you or go to the bathroom in front of you for like months, 6 to 8 months.
Not my girlfriend. The first time we ever hung out, she hawked a loogie and farted, and I was like, I'm in love. That's never had that experience.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. That was one thing that's just like.
Do you guys have shared interests, or is it just like, I mean, I guess with me and my wife, we don't share a lot of the same interests. And I don't never necessarily know if that's because of gender, but are you feeling that way? Like as far as shared interest, is the level of shared activity and things like that?
There's like, so he loves cars, right? Knows every kind of car, everything. He owns a shop in Tucson.
Yeah.
Loves cars, and I know a little bit about cars, but his big thing is cars, and he loves cars. Neither of us really watch TV. There's a lot of things that we have in common, but then there's also, I do recovery. He's not in recovery. He doesn't need to be in recovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I go and I do my meetings and I do my things, and
Is there any struggle right now outside of obviously this new territory? But for you, is there a lot of hardship that's coming as a result of this? Do you feel
not
like?
at all.
No.
That's what I thought the thing would be, was that I wouldn't be okay with it or comfortable with it, and it's like the exact opposite.
Wow,
it's actually been
man.
a really good relationship. It's it's fun. We enjoy hanging out with each other, and
Who would win an arm wrestling match?
I definitely would win.
You'd fucking wreck him.
He's like 140 pounds.
Oh, he looks like me.
Yeah, but shorter. You know what I mean? He thinks he's tough, but
you could take him.
Yeah, I don't think it would ever come to that, but
If it had
I
to.
like to let him know that.
I'm fucking stronger than you.
Yeah, well, and he knows like my past, so he's just honestly the thing that attracted me the most is he's like a person in recovery, but doesn't do. He's like a genuinely good person, like kind, caring, does things for his friends, goes out of just like someone that you'd be like, oh wow, that's a really good person.
But doesn't have that necessity, like impending drug addiction hiding behind
doesn't
it.
have to do it, or doesn't need to do it to stay sober. I guess you don't have to do it, but just like when we first started hanging out, we'd go out with his friends, and like we'd be out to eat, and someone would need something, he'd go and get it for him, and just like little things like that you could tell that he doesn't constantly think about himself, which I've noticed most human beings is a characteristic of.
Yeah.
But he's like constantly trying to think about others and do things for others, and is very kind and caring and compassionate.
Just lives in a constant state of awareness of the other people's feelings.
Yes.
And how they react to things, and
Yes.
taking that into that's a beautiful quality to have. And,
I agree.
And I feel like I was gifted with that quality as well, man, because I'm always thinking of other people. Like things will happen. See, he doesn't. David doesn't think of other people
He's
at
rude.
all. Not even a little bit, dude. I finally start to talk and you go and do some dumb shit like that.
Chad doesn't want to be interrupted during this.
Anthony did this to me last week. I'm trying to tell this deep personal story and be transparent, and Anthony's like, I look like a pile of spaghetti.
So listen, I'm going out on a limb here as far as with your significant other's mentality is, do you think some of that is maybe related to, because for us with drug addiction, it's kind of like a forced humility, right? And there was a long time that being open and gay was probably and probably still really is and probably definitely, you know, is kind of a hard thing to navigate with, you know, this socioeconomic situation going on, whatever it is, you know, the way people view it and all of those things. Do you feel like maybe that was kind of a reason why he's so understanding, was kind of coming up with that sexuality, or just in general, like his family grade, all of that stuff?
I think it's a mixture of all that. His family's a very good family,
Yeah.
very thoughtful and kind, caring family, and also, yeah, definitely being out and active in that community for a lot of years.
Yeah, they need advocacy.
And trying to be understanding and caring for others.
So
Yeah.
he came out and was transparent at a younger age?
Yeah.
A young age?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
20, he'll be 30 next month.
Has he ever dated a guy like you before? Is he like breaking them in, teaching you the ropes?
Well, yeah, no, he definitely, like, that was like one of the things when we first started dating. Like, his last two boyfriends were
We're gay virgins.
Yeah, I don't know what you call it, but there's a lot of terminology and a lot of things I'm learning that I'm like, I did not know this.
You're gonna have to school us up on some of this stuff. I'm excited.
I'm still learning, but no, like, that we're not out. And so he was like, I don't want to get into that. Like, and I'm like, listen, dude, I've lived a life full of, you know, I'm not afraid to like tell people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I've already, when we started talking, like Danielle, who was your guest a couple of weeks ago, I'm, like I said, I don't want to be living any lies. I want to be transparent. I called her right away and was like, hey, this is what I don't want to have a secret in my life.
Fuck
I
yeah,
just
dude.
want you to know I'm talking to a guy, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking about, we're going to probably start dating and that kind of stuff. So,
And she was stoked.
yeah, I mean, it's Danielle. We're very close. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine why that would affect anybody.
It really doesn't. And anyone that does, you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
It's such an opportunity for them to grow. So for you right now, and this is something that I thought was really cool, was you were talking about, was like still attracted to women. Look at them.
Yes.
You're like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
Still like boobs.
Yeah. Still like women, still, yeah, no, I don't know what that is all about, but, yeah, definitely still attracted to women, still like, honestly, if I mean, the relationship that I'm in right now is great, and I see it going somewhere.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, I would not be opposed to dating women again.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. That's so rad, man. It's so good for, I know at least me, sitting in the room just hearing it and hearing the conversation, because for me, it's like, I remember being younger, and I think we were having this conversation on the break, was when you're young, you really don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh, man, I'm pretty sure I'm straight, but maybe I'm not. And then I have, you know, I think, you know, from society, you're just like, oh, I hope I'm not gay.
Right.
You know, because I didn't want to get made fun of by my friends, because
Yeah.
everything was gay when we were 12. And then I found out I was straight, and I was like, oh, I'm straight. You know, I never, and so my mind's kind of, it doesn't have the capacity to even understand. But when you talk about, you know, it being fluid, and I have so many friends who it is fluid for them.
So you don't even know if you're gay or not.
No, I mean, I guess I haven't tried it out. I don't know. No, but I mean, I commend you, man, for coming on and even talking about it just a little bit. And I hope for our listeners, you know, if anybody is struggling with that, to know, like, you know, Paul has been a guy that I've known, God, probably 5 years. I know that my first year kind of being around in Arizona, and we kind of ran around in the same community. We played cards together, and, you know, you're a person who was a leader on the East as far as what to do in order to embody recovery as a whole, you know. And so for me to hear you talking about this stuff is really powerful, just to know that, you know, you don't seem to me to be a lost person. You know, you don't seem to me to be like shattered, or this is something, you know, that's sort of a phase. So I commend you for coming on and talking about it, because I think it would be really powerful for the people to understand, like, hey, this might be going on with anyone.
Right.
You know?
Right. And it's okay.
It is okay.
You know what I mean? It doesn't change. The people that I've been close with in my whole life, like my sponsors, know, you know what I mean, that I've always questioned it, and all my close friends have known. I don't think it's something that you need to I mean, unless you feel like you need to announce it to people, but
Yeah, that would be weird.
know what I mean?
That is funny,
it doesn't
though.
change. Like my friend, the funny thing is like, you know, people joke around about it, and people, you know, and it's like, they feel like they have to change because now that I'm openly, or, you know, dating a man, that they can't, like,
No more gay jokes.
right. And I'm like, dude, don't change the person you are. I'm not going to change the person I am.
Bring on more gay jokes.
Right.
It makes me more comfortable.
Right.
I'm more comfortable knowing that you're okay with this.
Yeah.
Now I can
Because
make
everything
eye
was
jokes.
gay when we were 12. Well, dude, that's rad. And so as far as connection goes and all of those things, I think what we had done with most of our first three, for sure, I know with Tara we had like a really good time, but you know, with everything that you talked about, I kind of like to sit down, you know, at the end of our talk here and just kind of wrap up, you know, everything you talked about, maybe turn it into a lesson that I can take home for me. And so looking at your experiences, what I kind of take away from all of this is a necessity to have somebody that I can candidly talk to about what I'm going through. And that's necessary, because I know for me, you know, I'm married, I got a baby on the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
it's September. It's
that's-
terrifying, right?
Wow.
It's exciting.
No, it's an amazing, beautiful experience. for
Right.
you. It will be.
And so looking at it and talking about my fears and talking about those things is so important, because I can sort of start to make decisions on my own volition, thinking that like this is the way I'm supposed to do it, or I'm confident in myself, and then I mess things up, and then I get into, you know, A, B, and C problems because I haven't taken any guidance. And I haven't listened to anybody. And now I've made all of these decisions I'm probably ashamed of, because I've made so many on my own volition, you know, so now I'm in a mess. So what I take from you is, you know, continue to be open, you know, continue to talk to somebody about what you're going through, and not have that fear of judgment, whether it be, like you said, about either your sexuality and or your, you know, ego associated with who you're supposed to be because of your recovery, or for me is my work or my relationship. You know, I go through those phases. So I really, really thank you. And maybe Chad, I don't know if you've got anything, or Paul, if you can kind of elaborate on what I was just saying, if there's something that you want to touch in there.
I just thought it was great, because the thing is, man, when I start to hold things in and I don't talk about it, I start to realize that like I'm fucking crazy, and I'm the only person that's in my own way. Like I'm in my own way. You know, and it's like I constantly, if I'm not transparent with the people around me and I'm not accountable, then I get in my way, and that's when like my life just starts to kind of like not take a physical downward spiral, but definitely an emotional and mental one. And like sometimes I'll find myself to continue to hold those things in and to not talk about it because of fear of judgment, right? Just how you had explained about like, oh, I'm 5+ years sober, I'm supposed to be this certain person, you know, and it's like, well, I'm not, I don't feel that way. And that's okay. And that's okay to talk about that. And it's okay to talk about, like, we're sitting here talking about weed, and I'm thinking about it, and it's like, I know what's going to happen if I start smoking weed, unfortunately, you know, and it's just like, it's going to lead from one thing to another, to another, to another, to where like my life is in the gutter again, you know? So,
Always
but,
does.
and I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I love weed so much, dude. And like my work is next to a dispensary, and I'll be driving there in the morning, and I could just smell it. I'm like, God, why does it have to smell so good?
Right.
You know, and I would love to indulge and have, you know, and do some weed, but like, you know, but and I talk about that, and I'm super transparent about it, because if I hold that in, it's just so easy. I just go to the doctor, and I'm like, you know, go to the doctor and like, so you want a medical card? Yeah, my back. Just, do you want a medical card?
Right,
Yes or no?
right.
Yeah, but my back is.
You don't have to say anything.
Listen,
We'll fill out the work. for
here you go. Here's
Yeah,
your card.
yeah, exactly.
Go to the store, buy your weed.
Right.
You know, so I just try to be transparent about all those little things that are going on with me, dude. You know, so thank you for your transparency, and thank you for bringing this message, man. And I hope that if there's anybody out there that's struggling, dude, like, and you've got something like that going on, whether it is about your sexuality, or it is about your mental state, or it is about your emotional state, like 90% of the world's not going to judge you. 10% are, and be prepared for that, but that's okay. People are going to judge. People are going to be weird about it, and they're going to try to change who they are for you because they don't know how to deal with that kind of stuff. But it's okay. It's okay if you're not in a good position. You don't have to constantly like hold up this facade of being like this certain person. Just like break down, be transparent, and like the things that are going to happen in your life are just going to be beautiful. They're going to be absolutely beautiful. Like anytime. Here's a funny story. A long time ago, a couple years ago, Anthony was actually my boss at this company that we worked at, right? And
Big
I
boss
was,
man.
he was big boss man, right? And
I'm about to sneeze away from being on Chad's lap now. That's what's happening. Things have changed.
I want to tell this story real quick, so don't fucking interrupt me. So I was. Are we done? I still smell like Similac. Okay.
You just
All
got
right, go
power
ahead.
through.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I was doing things that weren't okay, right? I was being shady, for lack of better terms, right?
Elaborate.
Oh,
Nah, I'm just
It would be weird because only the recovery community would understand.
No,
What the fuck
I'm just
talking
playing with
about.
you. I'm just joking.
But anyways, I was just doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, right? And I wasn't transparent with Anthony, and I wasn't transparent with all these people. And my life started to go, and I could feel it, man. I could feel things happening. And then, like, it finally came to that moment where I had to show that transparency, and I had to do the right thing. And as a result of it, my life took off in a totally different direction. I got a job in a different field, making great money, and I love my job. If I was never transparent about that, and I never got honest about it, well, I was somewhat forced to get honest about it, but I did.
But you did.
But I did, because I could have kept lying about it,
Right.
I could have kept living that lie, man, and it wouldn't have been no good. It would have been no good, dude. And like as a result of that, and ever since then, I've just seen that transparency in my life is going to be the one thing that propels me to that next level, right? To leveling up to that next kind of tier in life, So thank you is all I really got to say.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe.
Yeah, please subscribe. We
Please
appreciate all you guys
subscribe.
listening.
That's really it. Thank you guys so much for listening and taking the time to hear what we got to say.
We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it. Okay, bye. Love you.